battles the board and takes it away. Haynes quickly up ahead for SIU in a tie game at 12. Finger rolls it in with his right hand, and he's got 5. Timeout, Casey Alexander and Belmont.
We are Southern Illinois.
And Sykes comes near left arc. Steffi open for 3. Yes, sir! Yes, sir! It's about time Drew Steffi gets it to fall.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
For SIU, Steffi to his right, attacks, one hand's near corner. Haynes catch and shoot 3. Yes, sir! The freshman delivers! 9 points in the second half, 60 in the game.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Saluki Nation, welcome back into your Saluki Radio Basketball Podcast as we get you prepared and ready for Valpo Beacons. Here on Wednesday night, it is round 2. The second time that the Salukis will get a round 2. This team in the Missouri Valley Conference, of course, coming off their most recent one. It's the Belmont Bruins over the weekend, which, hey, that's what it feels like it's been here recently for SIU. Another game in whatever arena it is, whether it's being Terra Center, whether it's on the road, it's going to come down to the very, very end. And it happened again against the Belmont Bruins, and SIU came up on the short end of it with Belmont winning that game 73-68. We'll talk about that result, and we'll talk about trying to sweep the Valpo Beacons alongside the Hall of Famer, Rodney Watson. I am Luke Martin here from the Wells Production Studio here on the campus of SIU. Coach Watson, I really try, brother, all of us to not be rinse and repeat and say a lot of the same things. But, man, this stretch right now for SIU, it seems like that's where we've been. A lot of similarities. There's no doubt every game is unique and different in its own way. But, gosh, another scoring drought came at the wrong time for SIU back on Saturday night against Belmont.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of broad picture it because I wasn't sure what my personality was going to be like on this show, but here's the thing, that one stat that just popped when I was re-looking at the box score. Belmont is 17-3. I didn't really even cross my mind that they were having this isn't a good year on January, whatever it was when we played this game. This is a great year they got going. And you know where I'm going with this. It's like the maddening part as a Saluki is our opponent's 17-3, and we walk out of the building at 8-11. And really, what's the difference? That's the part that's got, I think, all of us scratching our head. And, so often as fans, we get caught up in the final score. I mean, there's not a happy Bears fan out there this morning, after the loss that they had late against the Rams after another kind of comeback thing, or you pick the sport, you pick whatever you want to talk about when it comes to competition. But with this Saluki bunch, I know I'm not going to apologize, and I don't think you are either. When we say it's close, we're not joking. I mean, how fine is the line between 17-3 and 8-11?
You are spot on, Coach Watson. And you and I in both of these games, I want to make this clear, and I said this on our coaches show as well. Tyler Lundblade is a pro. The dude is an NBA player. And I've had so many fans since then. Why did you say the guy's a pro? He is a pro. And the fact that SIU in 2 games held him to 1 made 3, 9 total points is what he had. And all that came in just the first game. Remarkable what, yes, the Salukis did as a team. Take this as well. I'm going to expand it past just Tyler Lundblade because they're a really good shooting team. I mean, at all spots, their bigs can shoot, their guards can shoot. They had 8 made 3s total in 2 games against SIU, Coach Watson. They typically have 8 made 3s by the under 8-minute media mark in the first half of games. I mean, and this is not loser Larry talk here, or whatever you want to describe it as. Like, this is legit. Like, though, there are really good teams that are not doing what Southern Illinois has done to an extremely good team in Belmont.
I'm glad you said that because I thought I was crazy. And those things you're talking. I looked down that box score, and there are some remarkable things about the box score on Saturday night's game. The first one is the point you made, and I don't even have to recap what you said. it's a fact, whether you guys want to believe it or not. Lundblade's going to make a lot of money playing this game. This guy's got every approach to it, and he's got the skill that is required in making large sums of money in this sport. But there was another really impressive fact in this game. 67 of the 141 points were scored by freshmen in that game. Jalen Haynes, 22, and then the 3 freshmen from Belmont. Now, this doesn't make it different in that I'm going to say 3 of those guys, and I'll include Jalen in that. They're not, 3 of them weren't true freshmen. Jenkins and Dylan were red shirts. In reality, Haynes is basically a red shirt. He went to prep school after high school. We had a chance to visit with Luke Walsh's dad before the game, and just the process of redshirting and how, guys, it's tough now. When Coach Weber came, we didn't redshirt many guys under Coach Aaron's tenure. But man, when Coach Weber came in and Matt, those 2 guys had great influence on redshirting. It's very hard what Luke and Daniel are doing, but you can see what can happen in January of next year with guys like Daniel and Lucas, just where this thing can go. And I was telling Lucas's dad, I said, everybody on senior night cries. Every player cries. One guy cries because he's a 4-year player and he wishes he had 1 more left. The other guy cries because he's so happy that he realized that even though at the time when you're 18, you really don't realize, hey, am I going to have a better year when I'm 23 or when I'm 18? Well, logic tells you, of course, you're going to be better when you're 23. But the quality of play, and then to watch Jack Smiley come in, who started down in Nashville, and then when Wes got hurt, and man, you and I were talking about when coaches say good luck, the reality of, we're not saying good luck, I hope you win. Hey, Luke, when you and I play, I hope you win. Good luck. I hope you take all my money today. We're not saying that. The reality of good luck, and it's part of what I learned specifically from Jerron Lewis's episode. It's like when I told guys good luck, it had nothing to do with the score. I could care less about the score in reality. I want everybody to be healthy. And I wish I wish the best for him, and he's got a tough injury to overcome. Boy, what Jack Smiley, a true freshman that went to, I'm going to mispronounce it. This is the Southern Indiana pronunciation of the prep school in LaPorte, Indiana, just north of Valpo, La Lumiere, and it's pronounced better some other way. But he's a true freshman. He played his senior year there. He played his other 3 years at Valparaiso High School. Man, when we keep talking about the quality of play in this league, especially out of the freshman class and the young guys, and then, you talk about the kid from Carmel, Oren, was just terrific in this game with 6 made field goals, 3 from 3, 3 from 2. That's where the game was at. The game was, and then, on top of it, a third-year guy and Drew Steffi was terrific in the game. There were a lot of great things that happened. So, take that for what it's worth. If you didn't care about the score and you really like college basketball, you're like, man, that was a heck of a game.
It's an area that I hope our fans, if they were listening to us, I hope we did a good job in describing how hard Lundblade is to guard. And a reason why he's so hard to guard is he doesn't use his dribble. So how does he get open? It's by getting screens, and not just 1 a possession, not just 2. I mean, there's multiple times where they're screening for him 3 or 4 times within a possession, which is why I want you, Coach Watson, to talk about the difficulty of that and why I know many will look at Damian Mayo's stat line and I talked to Mayo, like, yeah, he's frustrated about the turnovers and especially late in games, and that wants to clean up. But, man, what doesn't show on the stat sheet is having to fight over the top of screens over and over and over again. And, man, again, we're going to mark this moment. I could care less. Saluki fans, you're going to come back to this clip in 3-4 years down the road when you see the news and see, oh, Tyler Lundblade, scorches, 4 or 5 made threes in an NBA game. And you're going to go, I remember when Damian Mayo and SIU held him to a goose egg in Banterra Center. I mean, just the effort it took because of it's not just the guy can score, it's how he scores. And if you're taking it away, it is not easy work to take that away.
All right, let me talk about two guys that you haven't mentioned that's involved in that action. And you made a great point. I'm glad you give me a chance to kind of explain this. The guy that's really getting beat up is the guy setting the screen because number one, lung blade, there's a technique we call putting your shoulder on the screener's hip to make sure that the guy that's guarding you can't get over the top and can't squeeze through that screen. Man, lung blade is as physical on his screener as Mayo is coming on the top of that screen because the guy setting the screen is getting cracked twice. Man, that hurts. That requires incredible discipline and toughness by the screener. So congratulations to screeners in that situation. The other person we haven't talked about that really is as much to do as Damian or whoever was guarding Lungblade coming off the screen is Southern's newfound success in guarding the ball, in pressuring the pass. So Damian can go over the top, fight over the top all he wants. But if Lungblade can curl it, and then the fifth guy is the guy guarding the screener's got to be in a show position where where Lungblade can't get into the open spot closer to the basket. So the guy guarding the ball, the guy guarding the screener himself, those three guys are every bit as important as the guy getting the catch and the guy trying to guard the shooter. So now you get back to Lungblade, who's, man, he's terrific at it, and he's been schooled in multiple places. This guy didn't start his career at Belmont. He's been in some other spots, and, he's really good at that, and we've given him his due. But, man, let's get to the dude that's got to guard the shooter because at the end of the day, he's still got to challenge the shot and force that guy to catch it a little bit further. And it was mostly Damian, but it was also other people, but especially Damian, why I've really grown to love and appreciate this guy and why I keep saying he's got a different look on his face, because when that is your assignment, man, you got to be disciplined and tough, and you got to want to win the possession. And Damian does that. And what's happening is Damian is going hard, and he's like a linebacker coming through. He's cracking the screener. He's staying as tight as he can. And here's the thing he's got to do, Luke. He's got to do all this physicality without fouling the shooter. Now, that's as amazing as it. With Lungblade not getting the free throw line, that is almost impressive to me, because remember, that's how they won the game a year ago. And Drew just got into him, and Drew did his best. He just got into the shooter. Might have been a little leg kick in there. That's a homer talk in there. But, the fact of the matter is we're talking about all this physicality. And, oh, by the way, Damon, you can't foul the guy because if you do, he's going to make three three-point free throws.
Yes.
It's amazingly tough.
Absolutely. I think he's only missed 4 free throws all year. The guy is elite at the free throw line. Which is why you can't foul him at any point. Most of the times I'm going to butcher the number because I didn't. You brought it up to me when you refreshed it. But it's somewhere along the lines where I think Lungblade has been fouled on like 5 3-point attempts this year. He's made all of them, I believe, when he's been fouled. 4-point plays. I mean, that, again, he is a guy where you just can ill afford to foul at any time. And it's just a tip of a cap to all of the Salukis. But especially Damian Mayo. I said this as well. Casey Alexander, I know he watches and listens from time to time. If you don't vote for Damian Mayo on defensive team this year, just by the 2 games alone, we're going to have beef, brother. So,
shame on you. Shame on you.
Coach Alexander, that's it. You have to show us your ballot, brother. I'm telling you, I think Damian Mayo has earned your vote at the very least. In terms of what he's done from a defensive perspective. And as you said, I think it is got to point out, I mean, the highest ranked team right now, when you look at all the metrics on KenPom, is Belmont. Belmont now, they, of course, still 2 games back, but they also play Murray State twice still to come. So that schedule and all those things will eventually work itself out when it comes to that. But we've talked well about Belmont, and Coach Alexander's team no doubt deserves. I want to flip it back to SIU here. Drew Steffi, it was great to see him finally get going. Now the big thing for him is what we have described multiple times. It's the consistency factor for him and getting it to carry over. It's great when he can score in the 20s, but what you don't want is him to score in the 20s like he did against Belmont on Saturday, go to Valpo, scoreless, and minimal impact on the game. He can do so many more things, Coach Watson. Like you said, it's almost a disservice and an insult to have called Lundblade a shooter. The dude is a maker. I think it's an insult to Drew if you just say that dude he's just a shooter. Like, he can do so much more than that, and he really showed it in the first half. He's more physical than people want to give him credit for. And when he can use his body and get to the free throw line where he's a good free throw shooter and showed it in that game going 9 of 10 at the line, gosh, man, that is the formula for that dude. And if that dude can keep doing that, he's going to keep frustrating a lot of teams in the Valley.
Physical, that's the part I saw, especially late in February a year ago. That's when Drew really started coming out, and that's when his basically his redshirt freshman thing came through. Or I saw it on the defensive end when Southern switches a lot. They switched at all 5 positions a lot, maybe not quite as much now, but when he would get stuck on a big guy inside, I felt fine about him because he has such good length and he's physical and all that stuff. The part with Drew, and Drew knows, I mean, Drew, when we got it, most of you, if you listen to our post-game show, you listen to Drew, and he was great and he was gracious. And, again, we'll point out, and until you've had to do that after getting beat, that is hard. And we try our best not to beat him up, and he was great and all that thing. But once the headsets went off and the three of us just sat and talked when we went to break, boy, if you think he was cool with getting 24 points, you're kidding yourself. That dude was so frustrated with the loss. And that is what just makes my chest swell, with knowing there's not much difference between 17-3 and 8-11. And everybody can roll their eyes and say, oh, that's coach speak, but it's not. It's just when you got guys that care, and trust me, we're at the point of the season where a whole bunch of athletes are caring about other things. To see Drew feel that way after and he felt great about scoring. I mean, he's kind of feel like weight off his shoulders. But the other thing that I noticed, the free throws were great. He made some, he's really in good rhythm, had good open shots. But what I really noticed with Drew is he was mixing up his touches. His touches weren't just when he seems to kind of get into a little bit of a struggle offensively, he kind of locks in on one thing, like, okay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to forget about that miss. I'm going to make it again. And instead of, with his ability, as I've said throughout our time and watching these guys, he has a really good ability to catch the ball from the wing on the top of the key and get downhill. And I thought he showed that, especially in the game, in the last 2 games, really, I thought, but especially against Belmont, he really mixed up his offensive problem for Belmont, and Southern's got to have that, because he's a guy that can really create mismatches with his length, and he's very effective off the drive, especially when the defensive shift to one side of the floor, which is where he catches it most.
SIU also got a phenomenal effort from Jalen Haynes, 20-point effort for him, career high, and filling in for, obviously, Calron House. Not easy to be without Q, who, of course, has been such a huge part of this team this year. Team says continue to progress in a positive direction each and every day for Q in terms of his trajectory and wanting to get back. But Jalen also showed a ton of promise. And I think another guy, too, Coach Watson, that doesn't maybe get the credit for how good of a defender he can be, especially as a freshman.
No question. Another thing about Drew, one of the first things he said when you brought up Jalen's game and how happy he was for him, first thing Drew says he had no turnovers. 4 assists, no turnovers. That's a gigantic stat to go with the 22, because if that number screwed up, then it's like, but you got the but. There was no buts with Jalen Haynes' performance against a 17-3 team, by the way, a team that, in all reality, I'm going to tell you, ifs and buts, we know how that goes, that statement. If Southern was 17-3 right now, this podcast would be talking about, we got to be in the national talk for an at-large bid. Now, we'd be saying, hey, we're the 10th best team in the league. We're 17-3. Look at this, look at that. Well, Jalen did that against that team. And, he's 3 of 5 from 3. He's 7 of 13 from the field. You can do the math on the twos. He was 5 of 6 from the free throw line, 4 assists, no turnovers. When, and let's give his helper a lot of credit, because Caden Hawkins was terrific in this game. And again, you look at his stat sheet and goes, oh, really? What'd he do? Well, he didn't turn the ball over. He handled the basketball. He got us into our offense. He played 17 minutes for a guy that hasn't got any consistent rips ever. Okay. For that to be his first game against a team that I'm saying's got to be in some conversation about at-large bid if we're going to give 68 spots away, and you come in and do that on the first game in your college career in SIU where you really get a second rotation, for those two guys to come in and, it's real easy to drop your head and say, well, house is out. Okay, let's see how this thing's going to go. Man, those two guys said, give us the ball. Let's go. Very encouraging. And I guess those are the things that really got me genuinely encouraged about, hey, it's January. We're not in the at-large bid talk, of course. Of course we're not. But the reality is when we talk about the defense we mentioned on not only Lungblade, but the other guys on the court, you put together some guys that are really kind of coming out, doing some things offensively. 17 of 20 from the free throw line as a team. That's why I've been saying, man, that's fixable. When we were talking about the fixables, and I would say to you, the free throw line, no, I'm not buying that one. That's fixable. That's getting in the gym. That's fixable. And you don't fix it like it's not fixed. It's an ongoing process. But back to Haynes, 32 minutes. He's really good.
Outstanding, and really tip of the cap to Jalen and what he continues to do here during the course of his freshman season. And one area that I know that we have talked up, let me rephrase that. Coach Watson, when you look at this Saluki team, it's clear the last two games, those droughts at the end of game have come at a bad time. And also Southern's also gone on some droughts at the end of the first half as well. It's been ending the halves have been somewhat of a struggle for SIU here recently. I'm sure you probably can't think of the exact year or a similar year, but I'm sure there's been times where, everybody, you're fighting through probably yourself more than what the opponent is necessarily doing in those moments. And you could feel, and we described it, and I thought we were describing it correctly, like you could feel the tension late in that game against Belmont and Drake. How does SIU, because said it after the Drake game, don't be surprised if Southern's in this position again come Saturday. Guess what? They were. I'm going to say it again. Do not be surprised if SIU is in the position again come Wednesday night. How do you, if you're a member of a staff in years past that you've been a part of, worked in? It's on everybody now. It's not just the players. It's players, coaches, broadcasters. How does everyone fight through that kind of normal feel that you're going to have now when you get to the late in the games and kind of you avoid that? Here we go again. I mean, how do you fight that feeling as SIU moves forward?
I'm going to refer back to a coach that in Southern Illinois that I watched as a young coach when I was at Coulterville, having no clue how to coach. And I would go watch Pinckneyville games playing Dick Korn. Dick Korn was a guy that really influenced me, and his team took on his personality, and his teams, first of all, no three-point line, I don't think at the time. Maybe there was, whatever, but it's been so long ago. But no shot clock. When you're down 6 to Dick Korn's team, you were beat with 2 minutes to go. When you were up by 6 to Dick Korn's team, you better not celebrate because there was a lot of time left. The point is, Dick Korn taught me as a young coach that your team will take on your personality. And I would see Dick Korn. First of all, when he went like this, they're going to score because when he crossed his arms, Luke, it was a basket. Okay, and what he showed in the games that I would watch is that when there was a missed shot late, it would be this: we're okay, get the next one. Let's go, get a stop. We're okay, get the next one, get a stop. That's part of it. That's the guys wearing a suit. That's got to be our personality late. It's because your players. I used to watch my dad when we lived on a farm. It was almost like Wizard of Oz, and there'd be a big black storm rolling in. And I was a little kid. I look at my dad. I was a big man. I look at his eyes, and his eyes would be stoic. And I'm like, if he doesn't panic, I'm not going to panic. Okay. There's no sense for a little. If my dad's not panicking, we're good. Okay. That's what we have to be. The guys wearing the suits on the left side of the bench, get the next one. We're okay. Okay, that's really critical at this point, especially at this point in the season. You can't panic about a missed shot. Your next thought is get a stop, we'll get the next one. Okay, that's starters. Secondly, when the players see that there's no panic anywhere on the bench, and then the guys sitting on the bench, they see that as well, then they are locked in. When they get the stop, or if they don't, they have a better concept of, okay, we're going to be okay, let's get a bucket. Okay, now, let's talk about something that's really, really, really key. Offensive rebounding throughout the game. And that's with the Belmont game. Again, this is a constant that we're seeing far too much. We're getting offensive rebounded, okay, like we did against Belmont, and we're committing more turnovers. And I think Belmont had, without doing the quick math, I think they had 4 more possessions than Southern. You can't be in that spot. That's the difference between 17-3 and 8-11. It's that you can't give teams, anybody, more possessions to score. Okay, so that's water under the bridge. Let's correct that for later. But the reality is, late in a game, Southern had 3 guys that got offensive rebounds. Rollins Aligbe with 2, Davion Sykes with 3, Damian Mayo with 4. 3 guys. That is a big problem. That's a problem that we are not getting offensive rebounds by committees. It's not, those didn't just happen in the last 3 minutes of the game. That's in the 40 minutes. So those are really important factors. I bring that up because when you're struggling to score, we as coaches, we have to know who can rebound. Rebounding in the last 3 minutes, the last minute, man, it's such a factor because offense can be generated off missed shots. And we're in the Belmont game and only 3 guys have offensive rebounds. There's a lot of dudes that got in that game, 6 of them that are standing around watching, okay? Because Southern played 9 in that game with 2 guys being out. Not a criticism, it's just a fact. And that's got to be a major emphasis in these last, in these 3-minute games. Okay, I've been saying all along, quit worrying about the miss. Go clean it up. We'll have guys that clean it up. But those are really key factors that make things fixable because toughness is not the issue. Like the 6 guys that didn't get an offensive rebound, I'm not going to say, oh, that guy's not tough. He's not going to get – no, toughness is not the problem with this. That's not the fixable issue. These guys are all tough enough. They've got to have the desire. Damian Mayo got 4 of them. That's something we talked about with him. You talked about him in the summertime. I got him in the fall. How are some areas that you can help this team? Man, I got to get some offensive rebounds and putbacks. That's where my offense is located. Damien didn't have his best game. He had 6 turnovers. Okay, you're going to have that. Not excuse it. He's sure not going to excuse it. But the fact of the matter is, once in a while, LeBron James has turnovers. It's just the way it is. On the flip side, the intangible that Southern has got to come to grips with. Who can get second chance points when maybe our shot's not going in? Because Southern, they had 12 turnovers for the game. There were 70 possessions. It's far too high of a number at this point when you're playing that quality of a team. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of offense coming off that orange rim.
A lot of offense that can come off that orange rim for SIU, and the potential is no doubt there for SIU. And the last note that I had was one that we talked about in pregame. It was an area that I noticed with you. I said, hey, kind of the magic number for SIU. It changed drastically, mostly because when you have Isaiah Stafford out and when you have Calron House out, that of course impacts who typically comes off your bench in those type of areas. So Jalen Haynes, what he did in the game typically would come from the bench. But when SIU this year has scored 30 points or more from their bench, and they've done that 7 times, they've won 6 of those 7 games. The lone time they did it was North Dakota State, and we know how that game went. Give credit to NDSU, who, by the way, leads the Summit League right now and are unbeaten in the Summit League right now as well. Just FYI, really good team on the road that Southern played. That's the lone time they were unable to win when they got good production from their bench. When they haven't, Coach Watson, when they've been held to 30 points or below, which they were way below that mark against Belmont, I think 5 bench points is what Southern had in the game by the end of it. They are now 2-10 in the 12 games when they don't reach the 30-point threshold. You can bend numbers and get them to say whatever you want. I get it, but also it's to our point that we've said when Southern has had chances to be in these games, and especially the games that ultimately went the other way in the positive direction, it's been the second, third wave. It's been the reserves that have come in, and Southern's bench has been a difference maker, like Belmont's bench was the difference maker in the game on Saturday.
2 baskets off the bench. Now let's all, and you've alluded to it. I'll say it a little more specifically. Jalen Haynes normally comes off the bench, so the reality is the 5 becomes 27. Okay, yes. In terms of bench points, right? But at the same time, you know, candies and nuts, the Belmont still had 39 points off the bench. I mean, I don't know how you cut it. We can talk about how great we did on Longblade. Their bench really, to your point, and that to our point all season, how much this league uses its bench, it's a key factor. So just like Jalen Haynes had to step up being a starter, hey, Belmont can talk about Nick McClain being out. We talk about Q being out. Isaiah's out. I mean, people are out right now. Southern's got to get more than 2 buckets off their bench regardless, okay? That part is, there's no doubt about it. And it's, I think that's going to be a number when we start talking about the Valpo game or every game going forward. I've never looked at bench scoring as much as I've looked at it this year. And I'll be honest with you, I still can't figure out how these guys are playing the bench so deep. And I think everybody will. But, man, the bench is so critical. And Southern's got to get points in every way they can, because the reality is 68 doesn't do it, certainly at home. And that's never been something that's been something Coach Nagy's ever taught. He's always said, we're going to score points, and he's right. And I'm sure he's as frustrated with the 68 as anybody. But certainly the bench was a big factor. It's going to be a factor on Wednesday, and it's going to be a factor every day going forward.
You talk about the bench being a factor. Who leads the league right now in bench production? Murray State. And Murray State is unbeaten. Now, they obviously have terrific guys coming off of their bench with good scoring punch, but they average about 34 points per game off the bench. And look at who they're surrounded by. The Salukis are 3rd in the league, and I know right now 2-6 in the league is not where SAU wants to be. How about UIC? We're going to get to that score in a moment. They've won their last 4. They're 2nd in terms of bench production in 28.5, right behind Southern. Valpo. Beacons, we're going to preview here with Paul Oren in a matter of moments. Valpo is starting to trend in the right direction. And then Belmont, 25 points per game. And then you look at who's at the bottom. Okay, who's struggling? Northern Iowa has the least amount of bench production in the league, and they've lost their last 4. They're only getting right now almost 14 points from their bench on the year. That is going to be a major factor, and not just a major factor as you see the regular season go on. That's going to be a huge determining factor come St. Louis. And when you start getting multiple games in multiple days, guys get in foul trouble, whatever the case may be, Coach Watson, the bench, you're right. I mean, I don't think it's by – there's some stats you can look at and go, I don't know if that's really a great indicator. I think that's a really good indicator. You look at the teams who get good amounts on their bench, there's not a lot of teams. The only team that would be in the bottom half of that stat that has a winning record right now in the league is Illinois State at 5-3. Indiana State, Evansville, Drake, and UNI are kind of the bottom half in terms of bench production right now in the league.
When I go back and look at the times we were fortunate to win the Valley tournament in the 90s with pros on our team, it was our bench that you go back and go, really? Did he have that many points in that game? The bench is so critical, and I'm guilty of forgetting about it. I was certainly guilty of forgetting about it when I was a head coach at Southern Indiana, and I've talked about that story too many times about not using the bench enough. Bench is really critical. Here's the thing for me, Luke, and again, I hope I don't come off negative when I don't have to be. I don't feel bad when one guy goes crosses our face to go in the game. That's what I love about our team. And I think everybody else is saying, there's years you're like, ooh, man, that's a tough spot for him. What are we doing here? Man, when Southern sends a guy in, it's like, yep, okay, let's get something done here, bud. Max Picard's got more minutes. I mean, I think we've got to be wise where his minutes are at. But in reality, Max Picard's doing solid stuff. I mean, he got a bucket in the game. He's a guy that's got to get his offensive rebounds without question. But he's getting better. He didn't get a chance to get this thing going until, Prince did his thing, and now he's in a regular rotation. Caden Hawkins, if you think I'm concerned about him coming in, you're kidding yourself. Man, I love that guy. He's tough. He's smart. He handles the ball. He belongs in this game. Those are number 10 and 11 for Southern. Luke, go back to the Coach Herron's three-peat. I don't know who 10, 11 were, and I was on that bench, right? And that means those guys weren't getting rips. Bench is really critical. No doubt it's going to be a huge thing we're going to talk about when we get into the Valpo.
Yeah, no question. And Paul Oren, who does a great job with the Victory Bell. If you haven't or don't subscribe to him, he does way more than just Valpo coverage. We're going to talk to him about the Missouri Valley Conference as well when Paul joins us in just a moment. So let's talk about the Missouri Valley Conference and let's get to the scores from this past week. The War on 74, man, and it was a bloodbath. Illinois State thumped the Bradley Braves. They finally snapped that losing skid. They prevent it from being a 4-game skid, 88-62. And in that game, Coach Watson, Bowden Scumberg was outstanding. 23 points for him in the game. He was 9 of 15 from the floor, had 2 threes. And Chase Walker, double-double, 20 points, 11 rebounds for Illinois State to snap that skid, to win it in a big rivalry game for them. That was a great sign for the Redbirds to get back into the win column and get back to it in emphatic fashion.
They've got good freshmen as well. I mean, Illinois State does. They went through their patch, and it wouldn't bother me if they go through another patch. But the reality is they were really good against their rival. You know, obviously there's something to be said about those. Unfortunately, we're kind of out of the rivalry game right now. Murray, we're trying to create a rivalry with them. I mean, Evansville maybe a little bit, but that is the true rivalry in this league. I didn't realize, Wichita and Tulsa was kind of a rival. Wichita Creighton was probably even more than maybe ours was because in their proximity. We wanted the rivalry to be to be Creighton, but rivals are so fun for college basketball. At Southern Indiana, us and Kentucky Wesleyan, was it bitter. Man, oh man. And gosh, Luke, rival games are so fun, intense, and hateful, and just all the cool things about college athletics. But Illinois State's, whatever's happening with those guys, tape, I know Southern scouting will know that when we play them again. And but the game the other night, they had it going.
UIC and Drake in Chicago. UIC gets the win 74-67. They overcome a 28-point effort by Jalen Quinn, who did everything he could to try to keep Drake in the game and come back late. But how about Andy Johnson? He was really good and stood out in our game when we saw him. 21 points in 30 minutes for him to lead all Flames. Ahmad Henderson not too far away from him either. He had 20 points, 6 at the free throw line. UIC once 0-4 in the Valley. They are now 4-4. And look, am I saying that all of a sudden Rob Eson's team is going to go and win the league and storm past Murray State and everybody? I'm not going to that drastic of a mark here. But my point in also bringing this up, that's how quickly it can change, Coach Watson. I mean, think about when we go to Chicago to play them. Their last Division I win was in November. And to go through that type of stretch for them, and now they've won 4 in a row. I'm sure their confidence, if we had Rob Eson on today, he was great with us, by the way. Like that dude, I'm sure hasn't changed, which is a big credit to probably why his team's been able to ride the ship. But the other side of it is, man, that's how quick. I mean, like, you can go from feeling like, man, we're 0-4, book our tickets for Thursday, in St. Louis, like we know where we're going to be. Now all of a sudden, heck, they're not too far. I mean, they're just 2 games back of Belmont, who they led by 13 on the road in part of that stretch. It is amazing how quick it can change. And I don't think UIC and the difference between Southern and a UIC and even a Belmont, like we saw this weekend, it's not like the margins are very big.
Oh, I say that we're a problem for everybody in St. Louis. And gosh, I can't remember when we won our last game, but I still say we're a problem for people. You don't want to play the Salukis, but sure don't want to play UIC. You don't want to play them in January. You don't want to play them in March either. But what does UIC do well? We all know. I mean, offensive rebound. This is not a great shooting team. I mean, they're 3-point. Look, if the Missouri Valley tournament, if you want to go overtime, it was a 3-point shooting contest. We were going to be there a while. That next game is going to be delayed a while. But the reality is they know who they are. And they know they can guard you hard. But they can really go clean up stuff off the offensive rim and give themselves second chances. Now, they got a good player coming off the bench. Momo's really good. Big, strong guy from Central Connecticut that he's really figured things out since that November win. And, just little by little, they're giving each other confidence. Henderson's a great player. Andy Johnson, am I right? Another freshman? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, Holy smokes, we got good young guys. I hope we can keep them a long time, for the league's sake. But yeah, UIC's not a joke. It's not a fluke. It's not just a coincidence. They're really good, and Rob Eson is one of those guys that goes, "Get the next one. We're okay. Get the next one."
Yeah, Cooper High School alum, which I'm sure Dante Hendricks, who I've one of my really good friends at Indiana State, was a phenomenal football player for the Sycamores. He taught Andy Johnson everything he knew, I'm sure, about basketball. So Dante was a good basketball player back in the day too. So I'm sure that's exactly what he would say too. And what you talk about Momo, he only had 4 points in that game, and yet they find a way to overcome him. Henderson came off the bench for 20 points, was really big for the UIC Flames. Continuing the team we're about to talk about, man, impressive. In 40 minutes, they hold UNI to 44 points. Valpo's defense is legit, and we said it coming in when they were coming into Banterra Center, 54-44. They win the game against UNI. The Beacons led, did not a ton, got in the double figures, but shocker, Owen Deese, 20-point game for him again. He was 3 of 7 from 3, but so many. Only one player in the game didn't score for Valpo. It was very balanced all the way through, and that ended up being a really big factor in the win for the Valpo Beacons and Coach Roger Powell.
This number is staggering, and we talked about it that night or that day on Saturday. UNI did not get a bench point.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, a lot of their bench points comes from the guy at Illinois State from a couple years ago. I mean,
yeah, Wolf.
But man, I'm telling you what, that is staggering. And again, I'm never worried about Drake's team. When you're sitting on the other bench from Ben Jacobson, don't feel comfortable ever. But in the last 3 games, they've scored 18 points off their bench. We'll get to UNI later, but back to Valpo. It's one thing for UNI not to score on the bench, but golly, man, as you alluded to, don't underestimate Valpo's defense. They are really solid. And I still am shaking my head in disbelief on how we're talking about good players. I mean, Polk is a good player.
Leon Bond is a really good player.
Oh my gosh. Are they, but Valpo and we're going to ask Paul about, just about the trend of Roger Powell's teams. They seem to do this. We'll see. We'll see what his take is on how Roger Powell's teams seem to improve as the season goes along. But I know one thing that's improved: when you're smart enough to go get Owen Deese, a fifth-year guy, and bring a guy in, whether he's coming off the bench that he did early and now he's starting games. He really is a difference maker.
And then the only other Valley game outside of the SIU Belmont game, which we talked plenty about, was Murray State. They're finally back. They had their mini bye. They did not play during the week on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they hold off a feisty Indiana State bunch. 85-81 was the final in Murray, Kentucky, and mean this sincerely. It was great to see over 8,000 in the building. That team deserves it. They have played their tail off. The job that Coach Miller has done to put that team together. I know they're a rival, and Saluki fans don't want me to say anything nice about Murray State, but that's what you need in this league. You need to see fans coming out to the games, and especially to see really good basketball. And Murray State has done that. 85-81, they beat Indiana State. Sycamores outscored Murray State 44-38 in the second half. Camp Wagner tried to keep the Sycamores in it, man. 20, I'm sorry, not 23s. Now, that would have been a heck of a record. 20 points is what he scored. 2 of 5 threes, 8 of 16 from the floor for Camp Wagner. But, man, we talked about Jaquan Johnson and the impact he has had. I think right now Javon Jackson is probably your player of the year because he's on right now clearly the best team in the league. 21 points for Javon Jackson in that win. I mean, you talk about big-time buckets, too, for him. That guy gets timely buckets, but all in double figures. Almost all their starting 5 was in double figures. Javon Jackson with 21. Fred King had 14 points and 13 rebounds. What a monster. 13 points for Mason Miller and then 13 points for Lane Taylor, who we have said countless times. He was second in rebounds, by the way, only behind Fred King. That guy does just so many things for this Murray State team, and they improve and stay unbeaten in the league, Coach Watson.
I don't disagree with Javon Jackson. I agree with you on the numbers part, but when I watch them play, because he doesn't command the ball or hog the ball, or the ball doesn't stick in his hands. I think that, and if anything, that's why they're so good, because when your best numbers guy, to me, doesn't even really stick out being their best player on the floor. And I say that with I say that with reverence, man. It's like, congratulations to him, because he doesn't stick his hands out, give me the ball, and then, just 17 dribbles and, oh, I'm going to get one here. Man, it's fluid, and they get into places. Now, the reason that happens, why it doesn't stick in his hands, they got a lot of options. Murray's got a lot of options on that bench, and they got a lot of options on the floor, and regardless of who starts. So, yeah, Coach Miller and his staff, they did a great job in evaluating production over potential, and that production is continuing.
So here are the Valley standings now. 8-0 Murray State, 2-game lead over Belmont, who's in second by themselves now with that win. I'm telling you, that's why that game was, look, it was important just for SIU to try to get a win. But I'm telling you, Racers were pulling hard for the Salukis on Saturday, because that would have given them a 3-game lead over everybody else. Belmont 7-2 in second, 2 games back of Murray. Then you have 2 teams with 3 losses, Bradley and Illinois State. Bradley has 1 more win because they played an extra game. They're 6-3, but Illinois State, of course, initially right now has that tiebreaker, beating Bradley over the weekend, but they are 5-3. Then you have 2 teams with 4 losses, both at 4-4. UIC 4-4 right now in the league, tied. Then you have Drake right behind them at 3-5, with Valpo 3-5, and then 2 teams at 2-6, which are Indiana State and Southern Illinois, and Evansville just 1 game back of the Salukis and Sycamores right now at 1-7. Games to come this week. Tuesday night in the Valley, just 1 game. Evansville at UIC in Chicago. Our buddy Jevin Redmond gets to go to the big city there in the Windy City. Be taking on the UIC Flames to see if they can put out this red-hot Flames team that's won 4 in a row, looking to make it 5 in a row. And then it's going to be a jam-packed Wednesday night. Indiana State will have to go to Peoria. Tough draw to get the Bradley Braves after a really tough rivalry loss to Illinois State. I think Coach Wardle going to have the attention of his team when the Sycamores go on the road. But again, a very good offensive team, so Indiana State's hard to put away. Murray State, they will go on the road to face the Drake Bulldogs in Des Moines. We saw Drake, gritty team, see what Coach Henderson's group can do as they welcome in, and see if anybody can finally beat Murray State and give them their first loss of the Valley season. Of course, the Salukis go to Valpo at 7 o'clock. And then UNI at Illinois State. Man, you talk about a big game for both now. Illinois State able to buck that trend over the weekend to beat Bradley. Now they get what you can only imagine is an extremely hungry Northern Iowa team at 8 o'clock. So it'll be the games at 6, which is Indiana State Bradley and Murray State Drake, and then SIU at Valpo, which will be 7 o'clock, and then the nightcap will be UNI and Illinois State. We appreciate John Fitzgerald and our buddy Mike Matthews. They are the nightcap, so they can be our entertainment on our way home. So that's a look at the midweek games in the Missouri Valley Conference. We have delayed him long enough. Let's bring our good friend from the Victory Bell, covers Valpo athletics all throughout the year, none other than our friend Paul Oren. So great to welcome this guy on our podcast for the first time. Man, you see him everywhere covering the Missouri Valley Conference as well as Valpo. You can subscribe to him at the Victory Bell. He's been a good friend of mine throughout the years in this league, and I always love catching up with him. It's our good buddy, Paul Oren. Paul, great to welcome you on. Looking for you. You are just beaming with pride after that Chicago Bears game last night.
Coach, you said that you're a diehard Cubs fan. I need some advice.
Hey.
How do you handle losing to your rival, but then watching that rival lose to LA? Are we allowed to now talk trash because the Cubs lost to the Brewers, but the Brewers got beat up by LA? The Packers lose to the Bears, but the Bears get beat up by LA. I thought the only thing I could do today was just say, you know what? Quarterbacks and receivers report in 6 months. Let's wear the gear, you know?
When your coach gives your coach a flyby, yes, you're definitely. We saw that happen. Jim Les gave the Indiana State coach a flyby. I bet we ran that clip over 10 times. But yeah, flybys aren't cool. But when you're a diehard Cub fan, and I say this, it's kind of like talking politics. You're going to make half the room mad, and so we have our Saluki Nation is kind of half and half. But certainly the Southern Illinois base, our Cardinal fans. I got to be careful how I speak. That they just laugh because we've got one World Series in 3 generations. But if you're a Cub fan, I tell people I live in Evansville, Paul. When they wear the gear in stores, they go, "Hey, I appreciate you wearing the gear, but I'm not doing it until we really act like we really want to be good." So we don't get to talk trash on anybody as a Cub fan.
I hear that. I'd say the Cardinals, every time I go to Arch Madness, I walk by Busch Stadium. It's a really nice stadium for a fourth place team. Like that's a really nice
Saluki
stadium.
Nation, I did not say that. That did not come from me. That came from a guy from Valparaiso.
Hey, yeah. Paul is coming out swinging, which that's what he does.
Hey, look, I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and to Saluki Nation, I kid because I love. So.
Absolutely, Paul. Paul, before we really get into Valpo, which, by the way, man, Beacons are playing really good basketball right now, and especially on the defensive side of the floor. But we'll get into that for Coach Powell and his group. But for our fans that maybe haven't had a chance to really hear your work, see your work, kind of take them through just your path of how you've gotten to the Victory Bell, how long you've been associated with Valpo, and why this is such really a big passion point for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally, hence all the Green Bay and Milwaukee Brewers stuff and all that. And, when I went to college, or was getting ready to go to college, I was a senior in high school when Bryce Drew hit this three-pointer to send them on to the second round. Then they beat Florida State, then they go to the Sweet 16. And as any mid-major program knows going to the Sweet 16 is kind of like going to the national championship game, right? As I see the wonderful picture in the background of Coach there, Sweet 16. So my freshman year of college, I went somewhere else, but I wanted to cover sports, and that school I went to I went to Concordia, Wisconsin, and they hosted a tournament with 3 other Concordias, and everyone told me this was the biggest sporting event of the year. And it was awesome. It was the 3 teams came, there was a banquet, they played the games, it was awesome. And then I woke up the next morning and I looked at the local newspaper and there wasn't a word about it in the paper. And I was like, man, I got to go where people care. I got to go where the action's hot. And I'm following Valpo because I'd known that school. Some friends went there and their games were on ESPN and they were talking about them and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? Like, I got to check that out. So I took a visit. I transferred to Valpo. If Bryce Drew misses that shot, I don't go to Valpo. I don't know what I do, So like people always talk about, like, why are college athletics important? They changed my life, Like if he misses that shot, I'm probably looking somewhere else. And it's the sliding doors moment. So then I get to Valpo and I fall in love with it. And I did all the student journalism and all that. Went back to Milwaukee, worked at a rock radio station for a couple of years in 2002 to 2005. But in 2005, I went back to Valpo, started working for the local newspaper, did that for 17 years and said, you know what? I'm not a fan of where the journalism industry is going. I'm gonna quit that and I'm gonna launch my own thing. So I launched the Victory Bell and subscription-based site. I cover all Valpo University athletics, the Missouri Valley Conference, within the lens of Valpo. $7.99 a month, or $7.99 a month, and $79.99 a year. I just raised the prices, so I got to get used to how it comes off the tongue a little bit. So, but yeah, it's been great. So I cover basketball, I cover football, soccer, volleyball, all of that stuff. So it's been a blast, and it really allows me to be a storyteller, much like you guys are too. We all have different mediums of how we do it, but I love it.
Yeah, and it's so great when you have guys like, of course, Baker and Vance, who do a tremendous job at the March to the Arch podcast from a fan perspective to bring it in. It's why I had so much love and appreciation for Jeff Bidwell, what he did, of course, with More in the Valley to promote the league, what you have done through the Victory Bell. The league needs it, Paul, and it's, we really try so many times, and look, there's no question. I love our fan base, and our fan base is so passionate and great in so many ways. But I hear so many times of, the league's just not as good as it used to be. I know Coach Watson, gets it all the time. It's like, man, the metrics are there and the numbers are there. And really, when you look at and you watch these teams, I mean, it's different. The transfer portal's made an impact on that, but also it's made the league pretty darn good with some good talent, Paul.
Well, I'll say this. What is so great about America's Renaissance Conference, which is what Mitch Holtis calls the Valley, is the tradition. And when Valpo joined the league, there were beat reporters, media reporter, like newspaper reporters at almost every school. Well, those guys have all retired. I'm the longest running beat reporter in the league right now. But also, the league is covered a little bit differently. And what the Valley's always prided itself on has been the tradition of guys who come in as a freshman, who work their way in, and by the time they get to St. Louis, their junior, senior year, they're putting these magical moments on tape and things that we celebrate forever, whether it be, again, Southern Illinois making runs, Valpo has made a couple of runs and all of that. But like, now with this one and done moving around thing, I think what we really love in the Valley, the tradition, is something that we got to recalibrate our minds to a little bit. So at that point, what I look at is just a tradition of these great institutions and these teams. And, again, I'm looking forward to Wednesday because Southern Illinois and Valpo's, it's always delivered really some fun games.
Yeah, it has. And it'll be no doubt another chapter. Let's get into this Beacon team, the Beacon program. Talking to Casey Alexander just most recently on our podcast, I don't know if there's anyone that has lost as much as he has in terms of his talent, yet how they continue to just reload, find really good pieces. But the job Roger Powell has done, Paul, I don't think can be overshadowed. I know they may not have as many regular season wins in the Valley as Belmont has secured over time, but man, the talent that he has just continued to turn in, and this year's team no different. I mean, how would you, for someone that sees it up close, describe the job that Roger has done, of course, with the resources that he has, and really starting to find, I think he's got that recipe of knowing this is the type of player I want to see and look at to bring into the program?
It's interesting. I think he got the job late in the process his first year. And so the portal had been picked through, the best high school players had been, picked through or whatever. And so that first year they go 7-25, and it just wasn't a very good team. They took a couple shots on some young guys, but it just didn't really go well. But they'd found one really good player in Cooper Schwieger, who no one was really looking at, and they bring him in, and he wins Valley Freshman of the Year. And they get him to come back, and they also had Isaiah Stafford, as you know, who's now at Southern Illinois. And Isaiah, again, probably they put a lot on his shoulders that first year because he and Schwieger were the two best players on a roster that did not have a lot, and both those guys ended up at Valpo because of relationships of people that they knew here. So now you move forward into last year, and they bring in a guy named All Right. They bring Cooper back. They brought Isaiah back with the idea that he'd be able to push through the injury and recover from the injury, and it just never happened. And even so, that team, those two young guys, Cooper Schwieger, All Right, they willed that team into the semifinals of the Valley tournament, which was outstanding. Well, given the nature of where we're at, Cooper gets a 7-figure offer from Wake Forest, and All Right gets a high 6-figure offer from Xavier. Well, they're gone. They're not. Valpo doesn't have the resources to keep guys like that, And so, what did he do? Well, he went out and he got two really good freshmen, in JT Pettigrew and Rakim Cheney. And he found the right mix of transfers. Owen Deese has been phenomenal. He's averaging 14 and a half points this year, but almost 20 in conference. And Brody Whitaker, a fifth-year senior, kind of a steady leader out there. A couple of bigs. Sean Tupuola is another one that's really good. Now, what's interesting about this team is that as well as he's done there, a couple of the guys they brought in, Isaiah Barnes and Mark Brown, are super talented. It just hasn't meshed yet for them. And so if it does, this team becomes deeper and deeper. But right now, Owen Deese, JT Pettigrew, Rakim Cheney, the three guys at the top of the scoring, they've been really, really good. Deese will graduate after this year. You hope you can keep Pettigrew and Cheney. And if they can't, again, they already got 3 commits coming in next year, 3 really talented high school seniors right now.
Paul, before we go any further into this current Valpo team, let's get back to your history again. Do you remember the name of the play that led you to Valpo that Bryce Drew made the shot on?
It's called Pacer.
We all across the rest of the country call it the home run play. And I remind Luke of this play from time to time. This is the perfect time for the Bryce. We always called it home run, the long pass of down the floor, catch, toss, and that play. Now, is that on the wall in the coach's office or in the locker room that's required if you coach there? You got to run it from time to time.
So that's a great question. So I will tell you this. Forever, when I was in college and when I came back in '05 to start covering, and Valpo went on these, they won the Horizon League, regular season championship a bunch. Every time they would get on ESPN for years, they'd say, "This is Valparaiso, and in case you guys forgot, here's their biggest moment." Well, and it got so annoying after a while that it was like, God, is this really all they're going to talk about? But then no one talked about it. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, guys. Do you not remember this amazing play that happened? When Bryce came back to be the head coach, I think there was so one of the things that I think is legendary about Bryce Drew, that coach. I'm interested in your take on this. I've been around Bryce for a long time. I've never once in person seen him shoot a ball.
Wow.
And I think his mentality was, why would I shoot in front of my players? They all think it's going to go in anyway. So if I don't shoot, they just think I'm going to make every single one, right? And so they would show that video every once in a while when he was the head coach. And then after a while, they're like, yeah, reenact the play. And like, nah, that's the play. To your point, though, I'll say this. So Valpo ran that play. Obviously, you throw the guy that made that pass in '98 was actually in the Arizona Diamondbacks minor league system. So he had an arm, Jamie Sykes. So he makes that pass to another guy who later played in the Cincinnati Reds system for a little bit. And then they scoop it over to Bryce. He hits the shot. Valpo runs a different kind of play now. So that play is called Pacer. Valpo has a play in now that we call the home run play, which is where, and they ran it against Illinois State to clinch the game against Illinois State a couple weeks ago, where they'll curl a guard on an inbound and have him go on a dead sprint, and then you just chuck the ball down, and you got to hit the guy in stride who will catch it, and he'll go in for a layup. Well, in this particular case, Owen Deese caught it, went up for the dunk, got fouled, the roof blew off the arc, and Valpo won. So that is their version of a home run play. And as a matter of fact, the only coach that has been able to solve that play is Brian Wardle when he was at Green Bay and at Bradley. Valpo's ran that play against him so many times, he finally figured out how to do it.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a great moment. And back to Roger Powell, the first thing that comes to my mind that I wanted to ask you, we'll get to their players even more because those are interesting stories you got in the Golden Brown. But Roger Powell's team, to me, seems like they ascend as the season goes along. If you remember this series last year, Southern was really in a struggle, similar to what they're in now. They had gotten a nice win at UIC. They come to Valpo, and they were able to get a win in January. But in February, or later, whenever that second game was, when you guys came back to the Banterra Center in Carbondale, wow, it was a really impressive team. There were a lot of storylines. All Right was terrific. I mean, he really commanded the ball, and he was especially good. But Justice McNair was terrific at our place too. But what really impressed me is how well they got better in all phases as the season went along. And then it was obvious in the Valley Tournament. What's your take on Roger and how his teams continue to get better as the season goes?
I mean, I think that's exactly it, right? And it's cliche because I always say you want to play your best basketball in March, but they have done a really good job of building, and saying, look, we're not going to be a finished product. And that's what's happening a little bit with like Rakim Chaney and JT Pettigrew, right? Like these guys are playing more basketball than they've ever played at this level. Obviously they're freshmen, but in the last game, JT Pettigrew goes 0 for 9 from the floor. And you know what? They're not going to bench him. They're not going to sit him down. They're going to say, okay, let's get in, let's watch film, let's figure out how we're going to do better at this. And I bet Pettigrew, whether it's against Southern Illinois, whether against Belmont after that, I mean, the guy's going to keep fighting. And Roger does a really good job of lifting these guys up. And there are slumps during the course of the season, but he has them believing. Last year, that game against Southern Illinois is the last game they won in the regular season. Then they played Bradley. They lost that one by double figures. Then they went to UIC, and they were down huge in that game, and then they fought back. And then he tinkered with the lineup a little bit. He saw something that he really liked in those last couple games, and he said, we're going to try this in the conference tournament. And he did it, and it worked. And All Right played 72 hours of amazing basketball, made himself $500,000 in 72 hours. It was like a great run in Vegas, how good he played. And yeah, they have just built really well. And so, you know, there's nothing quite like being in St. Louis when the team goes on a run, especially when no one believes that they're going to. And I've been seeing it for 8 or 9 years. It's like Valpo's down. Valpo, why did we bring him in the Valley and all that? And it's like it's pretty fun when they go on a run in St. Louis and everyone else is packing up and selling their tickets and Valpo's still there.
Well, it's obviously been a long time. 2007 is the last time that SIU's been in a title game in St. Louis, and Beacons have been in the semifinals twice since 2019, and of course made the championship game that year against Bradley and phenomenal effort.
Can't beat Bradley. Bradley is the kryptonite. That is like if there was a rival, it's like what the Cubs are to the Brewers, Bradley is to Valpo, right? Like the Cubs don't pay attention to the Brewers ever until they beat them. And so Bradley's not paying attention to Valpo, but if Valpo could beat him, maybe there'd be something there. Again, because the Cubs have the Cardinals, Bradley has Illinois State. If Valpo could win, they might inch their way in there. And then they are the annoying little cousin that like, who's this group? Why are they at the family reunion?
Well, one of the guys, and he ended up getting the Gritty Award, or however Coach Powell really describes after the game. When we saw Sadir Servalis in person for us, like he stood in front of our broadcast location, Paul, and I said, this guy looks like a linebacker from North Dakota State or South Dakota State with how his upper half is built. Just a strong dude. How big was he in that Northern Iowa game, and how big of a piece can he be moving forward for Coach Powell?
Yeah. I've got two good stories about Sadir. Sadir committed late in the summer, or later than everybody else. I think they had 2 scholarships remaining, and he committed late in the process. And so he wasn't there for the first month or two of practice they all got there in late May. He showed up in, I think, early July, first week of July, something like that. It was right when the TBT tournament was happening, this throwback tournament with alums and stuff like that. And Valpo had a team in that. So Valpo's team came, all these alums, these pros, stuff like that, guys who are playing today, making a lot of money. They came and they practiced and they did some open gym with the guys. And Sadir had been off the plane from Canada for like 9 hours, had not stepped foot on the court. And they throw him out there. In his first possession, he ends up working with another Valpo guy to do a trap in the back court and turn the ball over at a key point in this game of this open gym. And I was just like, no one even knows who this guy is. And he just came in and made this gritty, hard-nosed play, right? And I was like, that kid is going to make some plays. And I said early on, and I've got it on record on the Victory Bell, the podcast, that I said, there will be a time when I say to people that I told you so about Servalis, right? Because I just feel like he has the look. The other thing that's really interesting about Sadir is it's almost legendary at this point. The game ends and they'll go in the locker room, they'll do whatever, and he's back out there on the court shooting while fans are still mingling around, right? All the kids of the coaches and all that are running around the court, and he's out there just shooting, getting shots up. He'd made 1 3 this season at Kentucky in a blowout loss. He hadn't made another 3 all year, and he comes in and against, in that game, he hits the biggest shot against Northern Iowa. I mean, the ball's moving around. They double team on Deese. They kick it out to Servalis. Nobody in the gym thought that he was going to take that shot. There's no way he's on the scouting report. And he takes this 3 and he buries it. Now, I said that in the press conference. And no one thought you were going to take the shot. Owen Deese raised his hand and said, I did. He goes, I see what that kid puts in every single day. He practices every single day. And Servalis, I asked him afterward, like, how does it feel, all that? Didn't even crack a smile. Just said, I've been working to make that shot all year long. I'm going to continue to go work. Press conference ends, puts the grit chain back in the locker room, and he's back on the court putting up shots.
Wow. Remarkable story. And look, and Owen Deese, primarily was kind of coming off the bench to start the year. Now, no question, has been a starter and a key guy for Coach Powell and his team. What is he like behind the scenes? I mean, we see the numbers and how big he is, How big of a role does he have in terms of just of a personality on the team, Paul?
Owen Deese is the perfect example of what transferring. I don't know transferring down because he was at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, so I don't really know where that. But like sometimes you just need to change the scenery to realize and to have a role. You know, Owen also has a baby girl. He and his, I think, fiance wife. I'm not sure. Have a baby girl, and he has changed his entire outlook on how he plays basketball. It changes his entire life, right? Like his focus right now is I want to play well for my baby girl, and hopefully she remembers dad being a pretty good basketball player. She's pretty young right now, but after every game, win, lose, draw, whatever, he's got his baby girl in his arms, walking around, pointing to different spots on the court and stuff like that. Um, Owen is the chillest human being I've ever met. He is just like he doesn't get up, he doesn't get down. I really, really enjoy him because, again, for us, and I think you guys know this, you build relationships with these athletes over time. And when Alec Peters was at Valpo, you had 4 years to build a relationship with him. Ryan Brokoff just got inducted in the Hall of Fame. 4 years to build a relationship with him. Owen Deese will be here for 10 months. And I'm telling you right now, it feels like he's been here for 4 years. He's phenomenal. All these guys are, but Owen in particular. Early on in the year, he started the first 2 games. It really wasn't working out. They put him on the bench. First game off the bench, no complaining, goes out there, scores 18. Well, now they're going to keep him off the bench. Some guys need to see the game unfold a little bit. After a while, you got to have him on the starting lineup. He's one of the best scorers in the Valley. Maybe a little bit like Xavier Johnson a couple years ago, a guy who just like out of nowhere just becomes one of the best scorers in the league. And so here we are. Now he's back in the starting lineup, and he just said, "Coach, whatever you need, I'll do it. I don't have a problem with it. You bring me off the bench, you don't play me, you play me, it doesn't matter." And the guy is a microwave. He's really good.
Paul, thank you for describing Owen Deese that way. He's a fellow West Sider of Evansville. Please explain to Luke that there's a lot of coolness where Owen and I come from. So, I'll tell you one thing about Owen, man. He's passed a lot of colleges for where he's ended up in both his spots, and I got a feeling that there's a lot of people scratching their head. Kind of where I was going to go with all this is we talk a lot about the freshmen in this league. You've got great ones. We've certainly got one. We faced 3 of them the other night against Belmont. What's your take on the league in terms of the talent and the young talent in this conference?
Well, first of all, if we're talking to Evansville, we got to at least give a shout out for Tironi's Pizza as the greatest. I mean, it's so good. I'm gonna get out after it's 1 degree outside, but I might walk to Evansville to have some of that now that I've got it in my mind.
Follow Yellow Brick Road, brother. We used to have our coaches show there. I love the Tironi's folks.
Amen. And a shout out to whoever sponsors you guys. But that
we're working on that, by the way.
Yeah, well, maybe Tironi's Pizza can deliver. They do say they deliver, so we'll see. Okay, yeah, here's the thing. The knock on college athletics right now is the Power 5, the Power 4, the Power whomevers are not recruiting high school freshmen. Are not recruiting high school seniors, so they're not bringing in freshmen. They're building the transfers and stuff like that. And instead of now of getting the transfers from other schools, now we're just picking guys out of the NBA and the G League to come join our rosters midway through the year. So the big knock is like all these freshmen are being overlooked. Well, someone's got to grab them. So why not the Valley, right? Like, and I said this to Roger. I said, like, because I'm an educator too. I teach and stuff like that. The number one thing you want for your students as an educator is to be successful at the next level. That's the number one thing that you want, right? Now, the way that we've always looked at that is preparing you for the NBA draft, preparing you for a professional basketball career. Maybe we got to recalibrate. Maybe the idea is now, okay, you bring in a Cooper Schwieger, and you pour in 2 years to that guy, and guess what? He just made 1.2 million or something like that to go to Wake Forest. The guy's set for life if he manages his money correctly, right? The guy made generational income based on the 2 years. Now, he had a lot to do with it, obviously. He's talented, but Valpo found him, nurtured him, bred him, brought him up, and now look what he's done. And so in the past, you'd never be upset if a guy graduated from your school and went and made that kind of money. So now I think at a Valpo or Southern Illinois, we can be naive and we can say we want it to be the way that it used to be, and guys come here for 4 years. I don't know that that's going to happen anymore. And if that's not going to happen anymore, then you've got to embrace the fact that, look, if you're Valpo, Cooper Schwieger and Allwright both came in and won Missouri Valley Conference Freshman of the Year. They're the best freshmen in the league. And now they've moved on and they're making money, and you wish them well. And now I watch Xavier every once in a while. I never even knew where Xavier was before this, right? Now, so now the freshmen that Southern Illinois have, the freshmen that Valpo have, the freshmen that Bradley have, we'd love for them to stay all 4 years. But if they don't, at least you've done right by them. You've prepared them, and hopefully they, don't forget where they came from.
I think the other part of it too, Paul, that you will see as well, and I don't want to name specific names, but I think we all can think of these type of names too, that, hey, if the money is what the money is, and there's no school in our league that can really match to what the level of those offers that you described that, of course, those guys got.
Yeah.
But it's also not everything either. And there's times where, all right, you may go get some money, but the playing time, stuff that you really care about in terms of on the floor, doesn't always carry over, Paul. And I think that's where you've seen, and I thought Coach Powell answered it great when we had him on the first go around when we had it. He's like, I hear from guys who have left at times, and they're like, man, we really miss your culture. And, and it's kind of those things you're like, all right, man, like you get it. And you as an educator talked about it too. It's great. Look, if we all wanted to make money, I would not be a play-by-play guy from the standpoint of, following this league closely as a beat writer. But that's not also everything. And I think that's where, when we see this thing evolve, it's always going to be hard to compete with that. But at the same time, there may be a turn here. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think there will be a turn where it's like, all right, you may want some money, but it may not. And it always depends on the personality too. But man, I think there's a lot to be said of, man, when you're thriving and you're showing that you can compete and play well at the level you're at, sometimes messing with happiness could really screw things up.
I mean, Valpo's got 20 players in Division I college basketball right now that have played here that transferred out over the last several years. 20 guys who are currently playing Division I basketball. Cooper Schwieger's not getting the minutes at Wake Forest. Allwright's not getting the minutes there. Tyler Schmidt's not getting the minutes at Towson. These guys are not getting the minutes that they probably would have got if they stayed at Valpo. Now, that being said, I can't ignore the fact that Valpo's facilities aren't fantastic. Fine, understandable. There's a lot to all that, It's if they're prepping for a career after college, right? The world-class facilities at a Wake Forest or Xavier, I get it. But again, it all comes down to what makes people happy, And that said, we're going to pour into the people that are here. I'm going to tell the stories of the people that are here because they're great. They're great. And I think the one thing I will say is what really hurts about the transfer portal from my end is the relationships, right? I spent a year watching Isaiah Stafford battle, and just fun to watch, dropping 30 against Illinois. Great, great, great. Then I watched him for a year in the darkness and on the sideline, rehab, trying to get back, and it's just not clicking and not happening. And now, you see him back. I think he might be out for a little bit right now. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but because I know he hasn't played the last couple of games. But you miss seeing that guy every day. Now you guys get to see him, and that's great because he's a fun guy. You miss not seeing some of the guys on a daily basis. Allwright, it's an electric personality, and you miss not seeing these guys. But if Allwright stays, Raheem Chaney probably doesn't come in, and I love seeing that guy every day. So you just got to enjoy the people that are there when they're there, be where your feet are, and that's what I'd say.
No question. Totally agree on all those points, Paul. Before I let you go, and we really appreciate the time, we could talk to you all day, is want to get your thoughts just on the league kind of as a whole as we head here. Almost hard to believe that we're nearing the halfway mark here, almost 10 games through this 20-game schedule. One of the conversations that Coach Watson and I had was, how many losses will the league champ have? And I think originally we said We set the over/under at 4.5 losses. I thought it would be 4. I thought would be the under. I still think it will mostly be that way as Murray State's almost through the first half with a clean bill of health here. Where are you at? Where do you kind of see the top of this league? I mean, clearly Murray is the best team right now, and they've shown that. They're going to have, no doubt, some tougher tests to come here in the second half of their schedule. But where do you sit? Do you think the league champ will have more than 4 losses less? Where are you kind of in that predicament?
Well, we got 20 conference games, right?
Yeah, 20 league
So are
games.
we saying that Murray State's going to lose 4 of their last 12? That's a good question. I don't know what their home and away splits are right now. They've only played 4 road games all year.
Yeah.
Um,
They still got to go to Illinois State. They still got to go to Bradley. They still got to go to Belmont, and they still have to go to Northern Iowa. And they go to Drake
yeah,
this way. I mean, they have, and it's no disrespect to Coach Miller's team. They have a much difficult backloaded schedule than they did on the front end.
yeah. So 15-5, 14-6 probably feels like the right number for the champion here. Um, that's what I would say. Look, I think this is going exactly the way I thought it was going to go. I voted Murray State to win the league. I don't want to throw a stray at Illinois State here and get myself into trouble, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Like I was very happy that those 2 guys came back, Chase and Johnny, like 2 great players. And this is what we're talking about with the Valley. Like they should be back. These guys should come back. But they were 10-10 last year. Like what Chase Walker has done to his body is amazing, right? But like he's a very, very good basketball player. Johnny Kinzinger is a very good basketball player. But like they were 10-10 last year. And it's not like they were 15-5 and they came back. Like they were a middle of the road Valley team last year. And so because those 2 guys came back, we all jumped to anoint them as the greatest basketball team in the conference. They were a 500 team last year. They're very good. Look, they're much better. But it didn't surprise me that they lost 3 in a row. Like it wasn't like the biggest shock in the world. They're a very good team, and they're going to be in the mix at the end. But just because they brought their guys back didn't mean that they automatically got to be number 1. I voted Murray State number 1. They're number 1. I voted Northern Iowa number 2. They were doing really well, and then they dropped 4 in a row. I put Illinois State up there. I put Belmont up there. Bradley is always impressive to me because Wardle finds the kind of point guard he wants and builds everything around that. He did it at Green Bay. He did it early on at Bradley, and he's got it again with Jaquan Johnson. Like he just finds his guy and builds the rest. And I have a lot of respect for Brian Wardle and what he's done. But look, I also look at the bottom half of the league. I look at Drake. I look at Valpo. I look at Southern Illinois. There's nothing that's going to stop either one of those 3 teams from going on a run and getting in the top half of this thing. So, are any one of those teams going to win the league? Probably not, but they could get a bye. And that's really what we're aiming for. That's what everyone's aiming for right now.
Paul, you're about as objective as anyone we talk to in that sits in your chair for just by listening to you here. The question I have for you, if you were coaching at Murray State and you do go on and you win the league or whatever, you're the number 1 seed in St. Louis, would you want to see Valpo or Southern Illinois anytime in that tournament?
No. The old certainly the thing that I think Murray State has going for it that is going to help them in March is the depth on their team. There was that time in March and April of this past year when every single day it felt like Murray State was announcing a new player to their roster. And I started thinking like, well, how many roster spots do they have? So to win the tournament, you've got to win 3 games in 3 days or 4 games in 4 days. And the legs are shot by that semifinal game. You're right. Or by the final game, depending on where you're at. And I think Murray will have the legs for the later games. Now, that means probably a really tough game for them in the quarterfinals because they're going to play the winner of 8-9, which is probably going to be Valpo against Southern Illinois, right? Like, I mean, if we're looking at the way things are projecting out right now, Indiana State did just get a good win the other day, but Evansville's probably going to finish 11th. Indiana State, I think, is probably going to finish 10th. And then you've got a Drake, Valpo, Southern Illinois mix there. And I kind of feel like Valpo and Southern Illinois are going to be in the 8-9 game, which is terrible, by the way, because it's the first game on Thursday. The team that loses, you don't even feel like you were in the tournament, you know? And so I do think Murray is going to probably end up playing a Valpo or Southern Illinois, and they're going to be fresh and they're going to have the depth. And one of these teams is going to be playing their second game in 2 days, and I think that's going to be a challenge there. So yes, you respect the opponent, but I think Murray's first game, I think they're gonna have the depth to ride through that.
Kind of one quick one here for you. Player of the year right now as we near the halfway mark. Is it about as confusing and hard to figure out as maybe any other year? And that I took what Coach Watts and I were talking about in the previous segment before we welcomed you on. Like right now, I think Javon Jackson's probably got to be the guy because he's on the best team. But even then, it's not like it's a total slam dunk. I mean, where are you at in terms of, man, like this is kind of hard to really it's not like in years past where we knew last year Bennett Sturts was the guy, and it was going to be hard for anyone to be different than him. And even in years past, you knew Tucker DeVries and X was a phenomenal player for SIU, but just this
Yeah.
team wasn't in the mix. But it's like it's hard to really see. It's not that you don't have good players because there's a lot of good players in this league, but just where you're at in terms of the player of the year race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably voting Fred King right now.
Yeah.
13-9. He's up there in field goal percentage. He just kind of alters everything. He leads the conference in block shots. He's probably the guy, but Jackson is probably up there as well. Probably Chase. Who from Belmont you put on there? I mean, Lundblade, yes. Man, it is. You're right. Again, Trey Campbell, I would have put in there before they went on their 4-game swoon that they're on right now, and some Leon Bond is really good. Like, it is. Like I made fun of the Missouri Valley Conference because they did this 75-person watch list or whatever it was. But we might have needed that many names to be considered because there's not a runaway at this point. And what I always look at is who impacts the game multiple ways. And that's Fred King for me. So Fred King right now is probably my vote for player of the year. But I don't even know if he's the best player on his own team, let alone the league. So this is fun. If we were handicapping this, I think we'd all lose a lot of money on this one.
Yeah, there's no question. I don't think I'm going to put the limited budget I already have on any of those bets as we go throughout this thing. Paul, terrific work as always. We appreciate the time. It's always such a great conversation with you, and truly, your insight. Even though you are a Valpo guy, you really show a ton of objectivity, and it's why I really appreciate your work and appreciate you coming on and spend some time with us. And we look forward to seeing you here on Wednesday night at the Arc.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. I can't wait. And if we don't want to go to the game, we can go to Cancun with Ben Johnson. I hear his flight is leaving any minute now, so it's good.
Great conversation with Paul Oren of the Victory Bell. Always entertaining, even flashing a little Green Bay Packer love for all those here in Saluki Nation that are Bears fans. But it's all love from Paul. Really does an outstanding job. Well, we dove into the league. We dove into Valpo with them, but just want to pick up, Coach Watson, of how frustrating, right, the last couple games have been for SIU, especially late. Let's go back to January 1. Minute 39 in that game. Owen Deese hits a 3. It's 67-64. One possession game. It's a game that Southern again had a double-digit lead. And you had a lot of those similar feelings. What's the difference? Damian Mayo hits that clutch 3 with just over a minute left in the game to put it back to 6. And ultimately, that was enough breathing room for SIU to win the game, and they won it at the free throw line, a place where they were not good that day at the free throw line that day in Banterra. Here we go, round 2, and man, the Beacons are playing really good basketball. This is going to be, as we say every time, this is going to be a really tough game for Southern. Southern to win on Wednesday night, they will have to play a really good basketball game.
And they don't have to play lightning in the bottle stuff. Now they do have to continue to make some threes like they did against Belmont. They made 7 during the game, made a couple late that you're kind of hoping for the miracle, but 9 on the game. I don't know if we can hope for that. 6, 7, that's a number that's got to happen. But the two things that have to happen against a Valpo team that doesn't score well inside 2, a team that is, with Owen Deese, you got a chance to always get a bucket every time down. They know how to put him in mismatch situations. But it's going to come back to offensive rebounds and turnovers. It's an area where Southern's got to make sure that they've got at least the same number of possessions. You can't go up to Valpo and give them 4 to 10 more times to score because they'll hurt you. Luke, I'd like your take on this. I felt like during the Valpo game, obviously free throws were the biggest bug for Southern. You missed 17 free throws in a game. Had a chance at one point to really get separation, 6-7 minutes to go in the game and up by double digits, and you miss the front end of a one-on-one, and things went downhill from there. But during that game, and we remarked on it, Southern's bench was just better than Valpo's bench. And bench is going to be a big deal. Will Stafford be available? I don't know. Hope so. Will Kelron be available? Hope so, because that helps Southern's depth, helps their bench. Man, when I look at the game that Valpo just played against Northern Iowa, a Northern Iowa team that I said to you the night they got beat by possession at St. Mary's, a really good team, a team that was knocking on the door for potential, spots on polls. I'm like, hey man, this Northern team looks to me like they've got the goods, and they held this team to 0 bench points. That baffles me. Again, as we talked with Paul about how Rogers Powell teams get better, this will not be the same Valpo team we saw on the Banterra Center on January 1st.
Well, you talked about that bench for Southern in the game. Over plus 40 was their bench when the players were in the game. It was tremendous. Haynes was plus 14. Sykes was plus 13. Picard was plus 13. Isaiah Stafford was plus 12 when he was on the floor. And Jorge Murillo was plus 5. Yeah, so you, again, assuming you have the right pieces and are healthy here, that's going to be an area of going to be a focus and going to be important. And you look at the last 5 games, what's been the key here for Valpo? A winning record in their last 5 games. They are shooting 43% from 3. That's the best in the league in just the last 5 games alone. And they're shooting almost 75% at the free throw line. 2 areas that Southern has to be good in to limit Valpo and make sure that they don't go off from 3, and also don't foul them and send them to the line, because, man, they have been good in those 2 areas, Coach Watson, especially when they've been playing better here over the last 5 games.
I would like for Southern not to outthink themselves on defense. The defense they're playing against Belmont, I truly believe translates to every team they're going to play from here on in, where they give good pressure. They're doing a good job of not fouling by pressuring the ball. A lot of times that happens because the aggressor seems to get the advantage. So I'd really like to see Southern pressure. They've got to make sure they're smart with their switching, because Owen Deese will turn your switch against you and he'll get the mismatch he wants with a certain ball screen type situation. And not just him, but those freshmen, Pettigrew, he'll do the same thing as a freshman. He's not playing like one. He's playing like a very much an upperclassman. Terrific player. Cheney ends up taking the last shot at Belmont. I mean, he's got enormous confidence as well. They've got a physical bench that we've talked about, that it'll be a different bench than we saw in the Banterra Center. So Southern's got to really start with figuring out what they're good at and be consistent with it. If you're going to have an identity comes with something that you know you're getting every night out. Yeah, you can be up and down a little bit on the free throw line. You can be up and down on some shooting stuff. But right now, Southern's got to figure out defensively, they don't have to get real tricky with it. And they got to understand with switching, which can really be something that you could use to be aggressive and hurt people. Smart teams can turn against you. So if Southern can be really aggressive defensively, they got to go to the boards. They got to take away second shots by this Valpo team shooting 43%. They're still going to miss some shots the way Southern's guarding them. So there's going to be long rebounds that we saw go against Southern against Belmont. All those little things, the intangibles, the loose balls, the 50-50 plays, Southern's got to be really good at being the 50-50 team here on in.
7 p.m. tip on Wednesday night from the Arc in Valparaiso, Indiana. Our pregame coverage will begin at 6 o'clock on Saluki Radio. For the Hall of Famer Rodney Watson, for our friend Paul Oren, I am Luke Martin saying so long, Saluki Nation. We will talk to you Wednesday night from Valpo at the Yard. Go Dogs.
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.